Sure. I just wanted to make sure that there was a question about the location of the dumpster, and again, the location's right here near the designated loading zone area. There's a small area for a dumpster enclosure, so it's along the southern boundary of the site.
Mr. Tunnan, what is the best practice? You know, rats, Norwegian field rats, or whatever we have here on the island are common. I used to raise chickens. They're no longer on my property. I don't raise chickens anymore. But, you know, Norwegian farm, you know, field rats come. What do you do when you start seeing a rat problem?
Well, you got to eliminate the food sources, first and foremost. So, you know, in any rat issue, you're looking at making sure that you've got no holes in the building, making sure that you're tightening up all spaces, getting rid of standing water, and then especially it's the food source.
Right.
I mean, that's it. If they don't have anything to eat, they're leaving.
Okay.
What's the seating capacity in the patio, out on the patio?
50 to 55.
Okay. Is there an outdoor bar out on the
No.
patio? There's no outdoor bar for seating?
No.
Okay.
No, it would be waitress or waiter service.
Okay.
And your dumpster pickup, you said you were going to have that more than once a week?
More than once a week. So I would probably put it on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule.
That's for your solid. What about your wet waste?
You mean like the grease,
Like your food?
grease
Like
trap
the
and all of that? So that would be on a service. You know, I don't know what size grease trap I have right now, but obviously it would have to, you know, conform to the size of the grease trap.
And again, probably for Jack, what determines out, you said anticipated hours of operation, and we don't anticipate live music. What are the requirements for live music, and where does the line get drawn with anticipated hours of operation?
Well, I believe the council would issue licensing for entertainment in addition to the liquor license, and they can condition that any way they see
Okay.
fit.
Mr. Turner, I think you answered that question no, right? There was
I did.
no live music and no music outside, correct?
Now, if there were, I might do a little bit of ambient music, really just to mask the noise of the Valley Road. But I have no interest in having live performances or anything like that.
Okay.
I'm asking these questions because I anticipate there might be, you know.
Of course.
I just want to
Yeah.
get it out there.
Yep.
And so just so we're clear on the music, again, you're talking about something that's just background to accompanying the dining area on the patio, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that the noise ordinance requires that any music or noise emanated from your property, which travels to a residential property, would need to be 65 decibels or less up till 10 p.m.
I am
correct?
aware. Yep.
So you've made yourself familiar with that, right?
Yes.
And based on your new plan, you flipped the location of your outdoor kitchen. So the smoke and all that shouldn't affect the neighbors, at least along that boundary line.
Certainly that was the
Concern.
the intent with that, obviously, yeah.
And just briefly, again, the grill being up towards Valley Road, but also, why don't you describe, remind the board sort of what the topography of the site is, your location versus the abutters to the west?
So it's a gentle slope that goes down towards the abutting neighbors. And Lynn, I'm sure, can speak to what the exact drop in elevation, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 feet. So the idea being putting the grill at the highest point, you know, obviously with grill exhaust being hot, it's going up. It really should be, it would take I think a pretty good wind to drive it down and back 150 feet. You know, I think of just walking up to any restaurant, whether it's an indoor or an outdoor, you need to get fairly close to a restaurant before you can smell the exhaust. And there's 100 and so feet before you you get to another house behind the.
Is there a hood on the outdoor grill?
No, it's an open grill. There's no structure around the grill, so even if there were a hood, it would be probably not of much benefit, as it would be exhausting into the open. You'd be sucking it basically through 3 foot of hood and then just spitting it back out.
Yeah. Okay.
You touched on it, sorry, go ahead.
Did you go through the neighborhood, or your attorney or somebody go through the neighborhood, your abutters, and discuss this project with them?
I did.
To find their concerns?
I did. Before I had started the permitting process, really, before I had purchased the diner, so 2.5 years ago, I walked the neighborhood on a couple of occasions, handed out an information packet with all my contact information on it, discussed with several of the neighbors the idea and what I was planning on doing.
And just to be clear too, after a number of the neighbors appeared at the planning board hearings, we also on August 20th of last year invited all the neighbors to come meet with us. We opened up the conference room at the Chamber of Commerce building so they could walk over, and we did have a handful of neighbors come and meet with us at that time as well.
And how was this received by the neighbors?
Well, it was mixed. There were concerns expressed regarding traffic on Chestnut Hill and Brookdale. So some of the neighbors were, great in terms of giving us feedback and telling us what their concerns are. And honestly, some of the neighbors, I think, have the feeling that they just don't want to see this regardless of what steps we take to mitigate the use.
And what, if anything, did you do to go and on the concerns of the abutters?
Yeah, well, again, it goes back to the sort of overview I gave earlier. Since that time, we moved the two-way driveway, which enabled us to move the patio area and the grill away from the western abutters, which is a residential use. And we came to terms with our fellow condominium owner at Keller Williams to allow us to close off the driveway in the evenings to Chestnut Hill, so that any patrons leaving the diner during the dinner rush are not going to be able to even exit out into Chestnut Hill. They're going to be forced to use the Valley Road two-way driveway.
And your deliveries and everything will be off Valley?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the loading zone is that striped area you can see right behind the patio.
Why don't you describe to the board, we talked about this in the break, what kind of deliveries you anticipate getting?
So the type of food that I'm looking to have at this establishment is, it's not food that's available from what I would call like the big box food supply companies. So the Sysco's and they're the ones who would drive the semis. All my producers, purveyors would be small purveyors, so they're in the 10-foot box truck, which is a big difference between the Sysco giant big box trucks.
And obviously, you'd have no problem giving them specific instructions on using Valley Road driveway only.
Absolutely.
You touched on it earlier. You don't think this business is viable without alcohol? And I don't, would you be able to come up here and make the investment you're making and do all this?
Probably, probably not. I would have to question my reason for doing it.
And how many jobs are you going to create? How many people are going to run this restaurant?
So in the off-season, there will be, I'd say about 8 people working in the off-season and up to 35 to 40 in the on-season. And on-season is really, April through October.
There's no other questions?
Which class of liquor license are you looking for?
Again, it'd be the beer and wine license.
I think that's C. That's C. Okay, thank you.
Did you initially apply for harder alcohols, or did you go right out of the gate and say, I don't want that?
Just for the beer and wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Todd? I don't think we have any.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Lynn Small now.
Lynn? Do you
Sorry.
swear that testimony tonight would be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Lynn Small, Northeast Engineers, 55 John Clock Road, Middletown.
Lynn, you've testified before the board multiple times, so we're going to recognize you an expert witness in the regards to civil engineering.
Thank you.
All right, Lynn, why don't you, if you could, just describe to the board, I won't get in your way, the site, the layout, the site plan, and stormwater management that you've undertaken.
Okay, can you go to the existing conditions plan, please? Yeah. So the site is at 47 Valley Road. I almost said 42 Valley Road. My office used to own the building that's right on the corner. Connor Dowd's office occupies the site, and the remaining portion of the site on the south end is grass, vacant land. There's a slope across the site towards the rear. It changes grade about 10 feet across the, from front to back of the site. We do have an existing exit on Chestnut Hill. This parcel that we're, or this portion of the parcel that we're working on right now used to be a separate lot and was combined with the corner lot sometime during the ownership that Northeast Engineers had it. The curb cut on Valley Road was never closed. Our original submission to the town included reusing that curb cut, just to minimize disturbance and to provide 2 points of egress to the site for safety reasons, among other things, and minimize the traffic out on Chestnut Hill. We went to the planning board, we submitted to the development plan review, went to the TRC. The TRC did their review for the project. When we originally submitted that, we had that curb cut on Valley Road limited to entrance only, while the Chestnut Hill Road curb cut was two-way traffic. The reasons why we did that were because the location of the existing curb cut and the requirement of a 20-foot vegetated screening adjacent to the southern boundary, the southern property line. That lot, if you're familiar with that area, that's a house that's right there right now. I don't believe anyone's living there, but it has been residentially used, although it is in a commercial zoning district. The way the ordinance reads is if you have to provide 20 feet of vegetated screening between properties that are zoned or used as residential properties. While no one's occupying it, its recent history was residentially used. It is a house, so we provide that 20-foot screening. Because of the location of the curb cut, we had one-way entrance because it wasn't wide enough to support two-way, and that minimized how much screening we could provide along that boundary line. It was our opinion at the time of the proposal that it's likely that that property is going to be commercially used in the future, just because I believe it's the last residential home on that strip. So we just expected that it would be temporary relief, although we had to make it an actual variance application. So we went through the TRC with the town. It went through your review with your zoning officer, your engineering, planning, and life safety, the fire department. Everybody was fine with it, and then we went to the next step with planning. They asked that we change that entrance so that we could provide two-way traffic, so that we made it wider. What that ended up doing is it forced us into widening the curb cut, which then forced us into having relief from that southern boundary line. Okay, I thought I explained the ramifications of that widening to the board at the time, but when we came back after going to DOT for every single revision, mind you, I think I have 4 DOT approvals for this project now. After going to DOT to get that change made, the planning board, and through the TRC, again, the planning board did not give us a favorable recommendation because we didn't provide the 20-foot of separation from that adjacent property. So we're here without that favorable recommendation from the planning department. As a result of that unfavorable recommendation, we made some additional revisions to the site plan, went and got another DOT approval to change the curb cut. So we'll be closing that existing curb cut on Valley Road and shifting it to make the project just work better. Now that we're not using the existing curb cut, to make the traffic circulation and both Connor Dowd's building and this new diner work better, we shifted the parking so that it worked more like a normal parking facility. Jack, can you go to the next sheet, please? So, okay. So I got a little more space here. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry, I had to get a microphone. So over on the plan now, we shifted the curb cut from this area, which is at the southern end of the property, to more centrally located on the property. This is a two-way curb cut. We have parking on both sides. We leave all of this parking as is, and then we have a double access parking as you go south on the property. The loading zone is adjacent to the outdoor eating area, and then we have the dumpster immediately adjacent to that. We did not want to put the dumpster, I know there's some concerns from the abutters in this area. We didn't want to put the dumpster too close to any property lines. Originally on our previous submissions, we had the dumpster located in the same vicinity that the dumpster is for the existing structure. But due to the nature of the project, we wanted to provide additional separation from the abutters. The drainage facility for the project, right now it is a basin that runs across the back of the property for the constructed portions, and it ends right where the old lot line used to be. We're going to expand that and run it all the way across the site. So it'll be immediately downgrading of the new proposed parking area. Can you go to the next sheet, please? Oops, sorry. On this sheet, you can see the grading associated with the proposed drainage system. It's basically an infiltration basin. We have one catch basin centrally located to the new parking area, which drains into it's pretty shallow. It's only a foot and a half feet deep. And then we changed the outlet structure. Right now, and this was one of the concerns that came up in different levels of concern through the process through the TRC. The original basin was built so that it has just a concrete overflow structure. And if you actually go out there, you can see portions of that overflow, the rocks, go over the property line. And they go into the edge of the right-of-way. Not into the roadway, but that first grass piece, you know, is technically owned by the town. It's part of the right-of-way. That riprap overflow actually goes into that right-of-way there. We're pulling all of that back. That was a direct request of the town engineer and director of public works. Additionally, so that was our first TRC process. After we had gotten approval from the TRC, we received additional comments from the director of public works and the town engineer to change the outlet structure so that it was completely collected and it didn't discharge into the town's right-of-way, but instead included a pipe that runs 200 feet down to the intersection and ties into that catch basin. So that modification is reflected on this plan. That was a direct result of specific comments by the town. That is not a requirement by any town or state ordinance. That was just a specific request that we added to the plan. The utilities for the site will obviously be water, electricity, sewer, and gas. We do have grease traps shown on the property for the proposed connection into the sewer. Being a restaurant, you're required to have that pre-treatment. After, if we get approvals through the town, we'll have to, before we start construction, get approval for Newport Sewer through their pre-treatment program, just because it's a commercial use. But we're fully expecting them to require grease traps, so we show that on the plan now. We did get letters of availability from the utility agencies that would service this site to make sure that we wouldn't have an issue getting a service permit for those uses in the future. Additionally, what I will go through quickly for you is the landscape plan. What's the other comment? I have, let me just, a revised landscape plan to provide you, because I think when I made the copies and submitted them to you, I accidentally grabbed the old one, or the new one came in after. I can't remember the process.
We're going to mark that Exhibit B, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So essentially, this landscape plan is the same as the one you had originally had. It just adds the double row of vegetation along the boundaries from the residential properties, which was something that prior to the latest revisions, we weren't asking for waivers and variances from the zoning board.
Again, so just to be clear, stormwater management meets all code, meets all municipal and state requirements, is that correct?
Correct.
And the, as you indicated before, the additional feature of the direct drainage into the town catch basin is something that was done upon request. It's not necessarily part of a requirement under the code, is that right?
Correct.
You also mentioned that we have gotten a number of DOT approvals. So the most recent being a letter dated January 24th, 2019, is that right?
Yes,
And this relates to the relocation of the driveway to the center of the parcel.
correct.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I've got that letter from the DOT. I could submit this if I may.
Please, we'll mark that Exhibit C. Thank you.
Not that I can think of.
If you have any questions of Ms. Small?
Any questions for?
Was that the only not favorable decision from the planning board? What were they?
The
Why didn't they give you a favorable?
They didn't, the responses that I recall hearing that night was basically that we didn't provide the 20-foot of buffering to the southern boundary.
That was the only reason?
Yes. That-
Again, just
I
to be
mean,
clear, there was one member that evening that articulated his concern about requesting a waiver on that southern buffer. So that, again, is really the only thing that we know of that specifically identified why there was a negative vote. There were other negative votes, and I'm not clear exactly what the issue was of concern specifically that caused the negative vote. We've been before the board twice, and again, we were there in June. They had certain concerns. We thought we addressed them, but the vote was split 3-2 in August.
Hey, can I have a question of our council? In a case where we get a negative from the planning board, we can still move forward with a vote, correct?
That's correct.
Because they're advisory in nature only?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
And I also have a question, and that was before you did the revisions.
These
which were seen-
revisions were completed as a result of that
Of their
specific
decision.
concern.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So you took their advisement into consideration and
Made
then revised your plan according to their decision?
And-
Correct.
Mr. Jackson, and I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure. We are only here tonight because of the special use permit, because with the changes that have been made to the site, there's no variances being requested, there's no dimensional variances, no waivers, other than the ones that you mentioned with the building, but they would have come anyway because
Correct.
of the nature of the building.
Yeah, because this is a use permitted by right, generally, the site plan development, those waivers would be at the planning board level, and the planning board would be a decision which is binding. However, because the petition is accompanied by a special use permit, and previously by dimensional variances.
Right.
Anytime you have a petition of that nature which requires relief from this board becomes the deciding board on all issues.
Right.
So the planning board just gave an advisory opinion in August. We're before you this evening on a decision for the special use permit and those 2 architectural and 1 site-related waiver.
And Mr. Kane, there's other things that come along with the architecture because of the nature of the building, correct?
Right, well, those are the waivers that you described
Okay.
earlier, the cladding of the building being non-traditional materials. So those items are actually listed in that
Okay,
decision of the planning board, I believe.
thank you.
Is that going to have to be addressed sometime in the future, after the construction, if approved?
Well, I think, if I can, I think we're talking about 2 different things. What we're before you this evening on are 2 architectural waivers.
Right.
And 1 site-related waiver having to do with a 5-foot planting strip around the building. I think what is being alluded to is because this is an antique diner, there may be building code variances that need to be addressed in the
That's
future. That's not before you this evening.
Correct.
And also, if the issue is questioned or raised, there's no request for relief from the sign ordinance right now because we just want to get through this stage first if possible, and then we'll decide whether or not there's signage across the front of the diner or it's just a post sign or whatever. So
Okay.
we may be back in front of you at some point.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to call Mr. Jay Grover, who's the architect, and he can just briefly explain the design of the structure.
Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Jason Grover, Courts and Design Architecture, 42 West Main Road, Middletown.
Okay.
All right, so Mr. Grover, your firm was engaged to design the support building for the diner, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so why don't you just describe to the board the design that you came up with and the elevations and floor plans that are before the board and how it relates to the 2 architectural waivers that are under consideration.
Sure. I'm not sure if you have the drawings. Maybe you do. Yeah. Yep. All right, so this is the first floor plan. And, you know, the main focus is this historic diner. But we need to have some support spaces to make this a viable restaurant. We try to minimize that as much as possible. So you see in the bottom there's the diner, 12 by 35. It's like 420 square feet. And what's required as well is an ADA bathroom, ADA access, and we also put stairs down to a basement to have more support space for the restaurant. So the addition, the support space is about 240 square feet. So you see the bathroom there, you see a door that goes out to a landing. There's a ADA lift on the top there and stairs that go down to the outdoor seating. On the next sheet is the basement plan. And that just shows the additional support space needed for a restaurant. And if we go to the next sheet, we can see the elevations. So the 2 waivers we're looking for are the material. The support space would be clapboards and wood. And we're looking to flatten the roof, so not to take away from the diner. If we had to put a gable on that, it would become this awkward building behind the diner. So we're trying to make that support space disappear. So that's one waiver, to have a flat roof in the back. And then the diner itself is of metal. We don't want to change the material of that. That's the second waiver. So this would be the elevation you would see from Valley Road. You'd see the full diner front elevation. The support space in the back would kind of disappear from that angle. The 2 side elevations, you would see the side elevations of the diner, and then you start to see the support spaces as you walked around the building. And you would see that on the next sheet there, are the side elevations. So you can see the diner has a curved roof. We want to keep all the architectural details and materials of the diner intact so that it has its historic presence.
If there's any questions?
Yep.
Does that say wood clapboard siding? on the-
Yes, that's for the support space
Right,
in the
right,
back.
yeah, no, I was just, couldn't read it from here.
Yep.
No, I think you did a good job preserving the character of the original structure, and I think it, I mean, it's subjective, but that's why you need the waiver.
Yep.
Works.
Any other questions from the witness? I think we're good, Mr.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to call Paul Bannon.
Oh, sorry. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your name and address for the record.
For the record, my name is Paul Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N, 53rd Street, Barrington, Rhode Island.
And you've testified before the board before,
Many times.
so we'll recognize you as an expert
Thank you.
in traffic.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of, regarding the submission of his report, there's a miscommunication. I thought his report was electronically resubmitted along with other materials to Mr. Kane, and I've just discovered that it wasn't. And we do have one original report that we can submit into evidence this evening, but I have to apologize. I thought the report had been scanned and submitted electronically along with the updated site plan, so.
We'll mark that Exhibit D, traffic report, and we'll accept it tonight.
And it had been submitted as part of the
Yeah,
planning
and
application.
that had been previously submitted to the planning board.
Right.
So, do you need to hang on to this, or, okay. So I'll submit this into the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Bannon, you were obviously engaged by the applicant in 2018 to analyze this project, is that right?
Yes, we were.
Okay, so why don't you just describe to the board the steps you undertook to determine what impact, if any, this project would have on traffic circulation in the area?
As part of the study that we completed, we conducted a review of the site plans and worked with Lynn's office on the access. We conducted visits at different times of the day, days of the year, because I have a number of projects in this area. I'm familiar with it. We conducted traffic counts at the side street intersection, Chestnut Hill, during the summer. We obtained accident information from the police department to determine if there were any safety issues. And then we assessed the safety and operations. We were originally not retained for the application because of the small scale of the project. It is a very low generator on a major route through the community, so it's a good fit for development of infill. It's not required as part of the DOT application because of the low volumes of traffic, and they didn't feel it would be necessary as part of the local permit. But after the first planning board hearing, the concerns were raised by the abutters off the side street relative to access. And as Lynn had indicated, the original design had a one-way in. So it would have forced everybody that came into the site to use the side street to exit. That's when we came on board, worked with Lynn, and through the process with the planning board, we thought we had a design for widening the driveway on the southern end of the property to promote and use that and keep traffic to a minimum on the side street. Since that planning board hearing, with the issue that was raised relative to the screening, subsequently we moved the driveway to the center of the property, came to agreement with the condominium abutting building to minimize and control traffic that would exit the property onto the side street during the evening hours. So we feel that the proposal satisfies the DOT requirements for safe and adequate access, minimizes the impact to the side street. The concerns were raised by the residents, and that adequate and safe access can be provided as designed.
So, based on your study that you did during the months, I think, of July? Yeah. So what kind of additional traffic would you anticipate that this use, even during its busiest time, would generate for that area?
This small diner during a peak dinner time period would probably generate 25 to 30 trips, like 15 entering and 15 exiting during that dinner period. Usually takes half hour to an hour for, someone to have a sit-down dinner. And, restaurant uses are really low turnover type.
25, 30 trips per,
Hour, in an hour during that worst period. So you'd have maybe 15 people entering and 15 people exiting during that period. Typically, you'd have one person on the driveway waiting to access the main road at any one time.
Compared to the other uses down there, how will this affect the traffic flow, particularly on the state highway, Valley Road? How will it affect the traffic flow on Valley Road?
It will have negative impact on Valley Road. The roadway is wide there. Turning left is not an issue. You have gaps created by the traffic signals at either end. So getting in and out of the property will be relatively easy.
How much will end up on Chestnut Hill Road, even though
Well, during the evening hours, we anticipate 0.
closing it?
Yes.
Okay.
what about with the complex and the bank across the street?
It's
I
fine.
don't understand the question.
With the traffic flow, if you've got 15 to 30, 25 to 30 cars an hour,
Total.
lunchtime,
Yep.
in the traffic congestion with the bank and that business complex that's...
We're not opposite that driveway, so we don't conflict with that turning traffic at that driveway. We're separate. We're in a block in between there. We're just west of the DMV area.
Isn't that the property that I'm talking about, right across the street from Chestnut? The complex that's right across the street. You've got the
Yes,
registry.
our driveway is about 150 feet away from there.
Right. But it would have no impact.
No, no. If traffic was limited, turning conflicts are at the Chestnut Hill intersection with the driveway to that plaza.
And Paul, the movement of the relocation of the driveway from the southern portion to the middle of the lot obviously made it closer to Chestnut Hill.
Yes.
In your expert opinion, does that create any safety concerns regarding traffic coming and going from Chestnut Hill?
No, it's far enough away, and the Department of Transportation approved that location.
So you don't think anybody that's using the restaurant's gonna exit that exit and get on Chestnut to cut through? To avoid the light at Valley and East?
During the day, yes, that's a potential, but during the evening hours, they will not have access to the side street. It'll be blocked off. That driveway on Chestnut will be blocked off in the evenings. So there will be no cut through.
So the only time that someone will have access to Chestnut from that complex would be during the day?
Would be in the middle of the day. Not in the morning, not in the evening, middle of the day.
Just to be clear, Paul, both Chestnut and Brookdale are public roads, correct?
That is correct.
And
With
during,
commercial businesses on them.
right, and during your traffic study, did you observe traffic utilizing Chestnut Hill from Valley Road?
Yes,
And traffic that was separate and apart from any traffic generated from the site, correct?
correct.
Any other questions for the witness? I don't think we have any.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last witness I'd like to present is Mr. James Hool.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
James Houle, Houle, 198 Union Street, Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Mr. Hool, you've appeared before the board on numerous occasions. We're going to recognize you this evening as an expert in
Thank
real
you.
estate.
If I may, I'll submit Mr. Hool's report as an exhibit, please.
Thank you. We're going to mark this Exhibit E.
Mr. Wu, you were engaged by the applicant to do an analysis of this project as it relates to the request for a special use permit, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, why don't you describe to the board the steps you undertook as you started that process?
I received the petition. I reviewed all of the studies that were done, the site plans, the architectural drawings, the engineering, the traffic. I looked at the petition itself, visited the site, visited the neighborhood, and familiarized myself entirely with what I could in the area specific to this use in terms of the special use permit that is the request. And of course, the special use permit that is requested is for the liquor license, or to have a liquor license with the restaurant. So in doing that, I specifically looked at the criterion for special use from 902 in the code. And it will not result in, the first is, will it result in significant diminution of property values in the surrounding area of the district? And I strongly feel that it will not. The diminution of value, I looked at this neighborhood very, very closely and defined the neighborhood in two ways. The larger neighborhood being from the corner of Valley Road and East Main Road down to Valley Road and West Main Road, returning back up West Main Road, and then East Main Road to the original starting point. I considered that the larger neighborhood. I looked at the uses that were in that neighborhood, and when of course, it's a neighborhood that is commercially zoned all the way around, either limited business, office business, general business, and it's clustered. The commercial uses sort of sandwich all the residential uses that are in the primarily detached single-family uses that is in the center of that area. And when I looked at the uses specific to this use, parallel to it, I found that there were actually 20 either restaurants or uses that had a food service that are in that larger neighborhood, that are on the roads. And when I say 20 either restaurants, you have the restaurants that are like Ida's or like Siam Square or Bangkok, the Bangkok City that is right on the Valley Road. But you also have uses in the neighborhood that have food service for the people that are there. The Knights of Columbus, Lucy's Hearth. I talked to the people at Lucy's Hearth, and Lucy's Hearth brings in food and cooks on site for the people that are there. The North End Club is in that neighborhood, actually centered right in that neighborhood. And so I looked at those as all having some sort of food uses that are very similar to this, or a range from low to high, Dell's Lemonade all the way up to Ida's, and full restaurants with liquor license, full liquor licenses. Then I cut the neighborhood back because it's basically divided by Bailey's Brook, and I looked at the triangle that is really Bailey's Brook, Valley Road, and East Main Road. And in that particular area, if you look at page 5 of my report, I centered right on the Chestnut Hill area, and I shaded the commercial uses that are in that area in green, and then the pink are the residential uses. And you can see that, in fact, the commercial uses really dominate this area, that there are, I think, 11 on my count, 11 or 12 residential uses, and there are far more lots that are zoned either office business or general business or limited business surrounding this area. So when I look at that, I realize that this is a very similar and compatible use to the rest of the neighborhood. It has relatively limited hours. It's only going to have a beer and wine license. The buffering fits the code now with the double rows all the way around on the residential side. You've heard the testimony of the engineer and traffic that there will be a single entrance onto the property from Valley Road. They're going to be trying to limiting the access to Chestnut Hill Road with evening barriers to make sure that the patrons are going back out onto Valley Road. So you don't have really any impact that I would have seen from any of those factors. Then I looked at whether it'll create a nuisance in the neighborhood. A lot of the response is really the same there as it was to the previous question. I don't see it really as having any, creating any nuisance. They talked about the dark skies lighting. The proposed patio area will have its own separate screening to mitigate any other further impact to residential properties. The proposed use is a restaurant with a liquor license. You've heard the testimony of the owner that it's not going to be a bar with food service. It really will be a restaurant with a beer and a limited license, a limited alcohol license. So there were no particular factors that I could see that would create any nuisance in the neighborhood. Compatible with a comprehensive community plan, it's a permitted use in an LB zone. The special use is only needed for the liquor license. Since it is a legal use in that zone and the zoning code represents the community plan, it clearly is in harmony with the plan. It also, of course, satisfies the need for economic development that's called for in the comprehensive land use plan. So I feel that it was very much in harmony with the plan. That the granting of the special use permit will not be detrimental or substantially or permanently injure the appropriate use. It is an appropriate use. It's a legal use. It's a common use. It's a typical use. Its impact is going to be modest compared to some of the other food service establishments that are in that area. So I don't see any impact or any factors that would be detrimental. The granting of the special use permit will not result in hazardous conditions or conditions inimical to the public health, safety, or welfare. It's been discussed that they'll try to do whatever is possible to maintain any kind of pest control. It's a very common, again, a very common use. It's going to have, it's a legal use, so I just don't see that either by the land use plan or any of the factors in their proposal that it would create any issues of public health, safety, or welfare.
So in conclusion, it's your determination that this application meets all the requirements for the granting of a special use permit?
It does.
Mr. Holt, in your opinion, does this, I read the comp plan several times, does this represent a reuse of an existing commercial? Because the lot was commercial, right? We're not making a new commercial lot.
Well, it is a reuse of the commercial lot.
Right,
yes.
so that fits perfectly with economic development within the comp plan.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's correct.
Okay. And the reason why we have a 20-foot buffer in an area like this is because of the different zoning areas, correct? The commercial up against the residential. In your opinion, is that designed to mitigate the nuisance factor to the property, to the abutting neighbors?
It is. You know, both in Newport and Middletown, in these older developed neighborhoods, you have that problem where you have commercial uses butting directly up to residential uses. The code has clearly gone out of its way to establish buffers that they felt were adequate in those situations. And I just feel that it conforms to what the code has requested.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Holt?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are the witnesses I'd like to present, and if I could just reserve the right to make a couple comments. I know that there are neighbors and abutters who I'm sure want to speak.
Okay. We'll give you that right, Mr. Jackson. The first group of people I'd like to invite to come up and testify are direct abutters. Those will be people that have received a letter from the town notifying them that there is a zoning event that you need to talk about, and they're called people with standing. So if you are a person with standing and would like to address, please come forward. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Scott McLeish, 4 Chestnut Hill Road, Middletown, Rhode Island.
Thank you, Mr. McLeish.
McLeish. I have a few concerns. I could start with the dumpster, I guess. The dumpster's one thing. It's bad enough dumping it 1 day a week, never mind 3 days a week. If you hear a dumpster at 7, 6, 7, I suppose they can't dump them at 6. I think the ordinance is like 7.
7.
So, I mean, that's bad enough, like I say, once a week, never mind 3. The traffic problem is close the parking lot in the Keller Williams building at night. Our kids are playing during the day. They don't play, they're in bed at night. They're in the neighborhood during the day. People cut through there all day long from coming down East Main Road. They cut through there, they try to miss the light, they go by the stop sign, they don't even stop. And what's gonna stop them from doing that and going to that restaurant in the parking lot that's open during the day? And the amount of business that he expects to do, I mean, 25, 30 cars an hour. He's going to have 35 people working in the establishment in the summertime, 55 seats. You know, you're talking 60 to 80 people a day in that establishment, or at one time. And I don't know, all these cars are gonna, I don't know where they're gonna park in that whole area from Keller Williams all the way around the parking lot, right? From the driveway on Chestnut, parking along the west boundary.
Site plan, all the parking's throughout the site plan.
Right, but it's gonna be, they're gonna still park on Chestnut, not on Chestnut Hill
Can you
Road,
bring that up on
but
the
close
screen,
to,
Jack?
close to Chestnut Hill Road. I mean, how many parking places do you have?
What is that, 33?
42 spaces, I believe, 39 required, correct? If I remember you.
Yes.
Does that include employee parking?
It meets the requirements of the code. 42 spaces provided, 39 required.
How does the code go, by seats or
3 for every
every?
person of total capacity. So whatever.
Does it
they
include
said,
the help?
That, it's all inclusive.
So you're talking a capacity of 55 seats,
They need
100
one
people?
space for every 3 people.
100 people?
Yes.
So they got, I guess. Anyways, the traffic during the day is gonna be a problem, because you can't tell me they're not gonna go out that driveway and take a left. I don't care how many signs you have. It's gonna happen. I talked to Chris about the trucks coming in there, and he assured me that the trucks, he would direct the trucks to go out on Valley Road, which is fine. But I don't think you're gonna stop those cars from coming in to access the restaurant and going out. To miss the light, take a right, take a left on Valley Road, or go to the Quinnick Shopping Center, or wherever they want to go that way. And they're gonna do it. You know, I don't know what's gonna stop them. You know, once it's there, you can't stop them. I mean, even putting up the gate at night, who's gonna do that?
Mr. Jackson, did you say you were putting an extra sign up to discourage people from doing that? And I'm just
Yes.
wondering if there's any appeasement there, please be courteous to the adjacent neighborhood
Sure.
and use the Valley Road exit.
So we have represented that we will have on-site signage to make sure our patrons are directed to use Valley Road. We're gonna have on-site signage at the Chestnut Hill driveway that indicates right turn only. And then again, in the evenings, we'll put up a temporary barricade so people can't use the driveway at all.
That doesn't help the
Can you
daytime.
make that Chestnut Street exit in such a way that it is right turn only?
No,
They can't make a left?
no. And there's a stop sign on the corner of Chestnut and Brookdale. If they don't look at that, they run right through there all day long. So, you know, a sign's not gonna, I just don't know how it's gonna happen. You know, it's all well and good. I'm in the restaurant business. If it's impacting, it's gonna impact me and our neighbors. I've been there for 42 years with no problem. What's it gonna do to the evaluation of my house? I don't know. I didn't hear the real estate expert address that.
That was the first thing he addressed. His testimony was there'd be no diminution of property values.
No diminution.
Until the cars are parked out front.
The drainage, I guess they addressed, when they make the ditch, it's gonna go all the way along the property, they wanna
Yes.
put a pipe in that trench. How does the water access the pipe?
It's going to go from the trench out of the pipe to the town
I
basin.
understand that, but where's the water gonna access the pipe?
At the
On the
at
whole
Chest-
pipe?
No, at the Chestnut end, I believe. It's what they showed us a drawing of.
But
Where the
where's-
overflow is now, instead of having it overflow.
No, I understand the overflow, but how's the water gonna get from this end of the property to the other end of the property, or in the middle of the property? The water's coming, here's the property, it's this long. The water's coming here, here, and here.
Well, the engineer testified that they're putting in a pipe from there all the way
I
down
know
to
they
the
are,
corner
but
of your property.
I realize they
So
are.
that will gain access to that pipe. right
But the
there.
water's only gonna go in one end of the pipe, right? And out one end of the pipe.
But I believe it's an infiltration system, so it's only going to go into that pipe when it gets to a certain level. So it's going to go up and then go into the pipe. Am I correct, Lynn?
No.
Right. So it's an infiltration system. So on a light rain, it's just going to flow into the ditch and sit there and infiltrate into the ground. On a heavy rain event, it's going to go into the ditch, go up, and where now it would go out on the overflow, I believe it's going to go out the overflow and go into a pipe. That's what the testimony I heard.
I understand that. You know what started the whole thing was I have 3 sump pumps in my basement. That's what started the whole pipe business, because I have 3 pumps that go constantly.
What if this area is running off into your house and somehow now it might be a better situation?
Well, not if it's gonna have a retention pond all the way along the property now. It's gonna go into the ground. It was supposed to go into a pipe, that was my understanding, and go out. Not overflow at the end and go, and that's it's the town property, but it's going into my yard. And it's finding its way to my basement, I don't know. The water comes all the way from Job Lot, in my mind, into my basement, and it runs 6 months, 4 months, 5 months a year, constantly. Matter of fact, the town, that's why they put the storm drain on the corner of Brookdale and Chestnut, so I could take my sump pump water out of the sewer and put it in the storm drain. That's why they put that drainage there, because I had so much water coming out of there that they had to bring a backhoe down and chip the ice off the road in the wintertime. So, it's a problem. I need to say it, and that's what it is. I don't know how to, so.
Thank you for your testimony tonight.
That said, I think that's all I have to say. I mean, I wish Chris a lot of luck, but if it inconveniences me, then I have to say something, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Come on up. Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Robert Matos, 41 Brookdale Road. Pardon? M-A-T-O-S-E. Matos like tomatoes. Okay, I have before me a letter of objection signed by our neighbors here. And going back to August with Chris, in the Chamber of Commerce there, we discussed his plans. I discussed my objections. I think this is a great idea, not abutting a residential neighborhood, for a number of reasons, okay? I'll go down this list on the proposed letter of objection here. Right now, Brookdale and Chestnut Hill Road is a very quiet neighborhood, okay? We have a commercial entity at the corner, northeast corner of the property lines there, and it's non-impact. It's a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday operation. So quiet you think it's a monastery back there. They really don't bother anybody. Okay? Now, you're going to put this diner abutting our neighbors, my neighbors, myself included. Now, this diner is going to be open till 8 p.m. and then 10 o'clock on Friday and Saturday nights. Okay? You're going to serve alcohol. There's going to be laughing and joking, people having a good time. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're sitting out your deck in your backyard at 9 o'clock at night, and a nice summer day, you know, summer night rather, you're going to have this noise. You're going to have a barbecue pit back there. It's going to emit smoke and sound, odors. When the wind comes from the northeast, I could smell Bangkok City. When it comes from the southwest, I could smell Becky's chicken, Becky's barbecue. Okay, so this is going to be in our backyard. You're going to have lighting back there. Okay? You're going to have a dumpster back there. We all know what dumpsters do. They attract rats. You can't help it. It's the nature of the beast. If you look in the letter of objection, there's a survey about rats in the back there. Okay? And that's from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Okay, you're going to have traffic. We have children in the neighborhood. You're going to have delivery trucks. 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever time they rumble by there, who knows? You're not going to tell them, oh, you can't go here, you can't go there. People don't read signs, okay? We have a stop sign there, no one cares, they just go right through it. It's much easier if a delivery's coming from the south or the southwest to cut through Chestnut Hill Road, Brookdale Road, Chestnut Hill Road, and make a right turn into Valley Road, into the diner. Okay? So daytime, they'll cut out, they'll use Chestnut Hill Road, it's easy, less traffic. Okay? I see you've done something with the abrevieties. You've got 2 rows now, and you're going to have proper drainage, because when the water sheets down from that parking lot, it's going to be a problem. It's going to head west, downhill. So that will be an improvement right there. But this is not a 9 to 5 type business. And again, you're going to have some type of entertainment, music, lights, alcohol being served. And it's really not conducive to a residential area. I have no objections to commercial property at all when they abut residential areas. But when it's going to be an impact, odors, smoke, rats, noise, lights, it's really not a good idea. Again, Keller Williams, no problem. 9 to 5 operation, Monday through Friday. This is going to be including Saturdays and Sundays. Monday's the day off. So I personally think this is a bad idea, not the right place for it. Okay? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your
You
testimony.
have the letter of objection right there. go through it and read it.
It's in the file.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other abutters that would like to speak this evening? Raise your right hand.
Hi.
Do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your name and address for the record.
Helen McInerney, and it's 35 Brookdale Road, Middletown. It's McInerney. Can I proceed?
Yeah.
Okay. I took some notes. My main concern is I have the youngest children on the street. I have a 1-year-old, 5-year-old, and an 8-year-old who like to play outside with their friends at the far end of the street. They're right at bike riding ages. They like to get out on the street, and especially in summer. This whole closing it at nighttime isn't going to solve summer in any way, shape, or form. Just doesn't. And if you're saying 30 cars an hour, what's that? 1 car every 2 minutes? There's not a lot of playing that's going to happen, okay? Not a lot of playing is going to happen with a car every 2 minutes, okay? They go fast, they don't go slow. We have to watch out. So, again, small children. My home is also the closest to the dumpster from apparently, and I'm also closest to the patio and the smells and all this stuff. I can smell Siam Square across the street. It's further away. I can smell it, no problem. You can't control smoke, you can't control wind. No matter how much you say, you're gonna make it do what you can. I believe from the traffic study, when the last time we were here, he said that the traffic would increase from about 10 or 20 cars to almost double that. Just think about that. That's double, okay? Alcohol. You gonna tell people not to get in their car and drive home? Don't think any of us can do that. So are they really going to follow that sign and not go left when they know it's the easiest one? They're under the influence. What if they don't stop? I know that we've turned that corner and have not seen pedestrians walking up. There's no stop sign when you're coming down Chestnut Hill and going left onto Brookdale. There's only a stop sign going to the right, and people don't stop. So you swerve around there, and there's no stopping when there's a kid right there. You're going to hit them, okay? So you have to be vigilant if it's going to be the hours of, again, do people drink and drive? Yes. Do they do it at night? No, they do it at all the time, hours. So there's a big concern. Early morning deliveries and trash. Did I mention I have a toddler and a baby? That's the back of the house. That's where all the activity is going on. When you have a little kid, you don't want them to wake up, okay? Not when they're supposed to. So deliveries, lights, you name it, everything going on at the back, my kids are going to hear. They go to bed at 8 o'clock, okay? Sometimes earlier. Quality of life, basically. I like to sit out on our deck. We're all out there. I've got a nice lawn deck out back. Got a new pool that we wanted to use, and it's just a couple of 100 feet away from all this activity going on. Everything that has been said, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll make sure of this, none of it he's not been held to it. There's no written obligation to follow what he's promised, and I do not want to take away from what his promises mean, but they're just that, they're promises. What if an opportunity comes up for this live singer to come along, I'm going to do it and bring a ton of people in. You just said you wouldn't do it, but you don't know what they're going to do in the future, okay? Probably a lot will be said just to make sure that we get through today. And I just want to point out, when he came around to the neighborhood a year or two ago, I did respond, I wish you the best of luck, but I said, not if it impacts my quality of life. That was it. I said, I wish you the best, I wish you good luck, but not if it impacts my quality of life. And from the looks of this, with the outdoor stuff and the traffic, Chestnut Hill being open, there's no way. There's no way that this is not going to negatively impact us. And I don't care what another expert will say. Until you've lived on our street and you live in our homes, you can't say this won't negatively affect your life, because it will, okay? And when I wish him best of luck, I also agree with Bob that this is a great idea, but not jamming it in this little tiny space surrounded by residents who've been there a long time. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Are there any other butters that would like to speak? Are there any other concerned citizens from the town of Middletown that would like to speak? Come on up. We'd ask that you keep your conversation to new material, so don't reiterate what's been said to
Correct.
date.
Correct. Thank you.
Ray,
Anton Viveris. Oh,
do you swear the testimony tonight will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
Anton Viveris, 110 Indian Hill Road.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to bring the zoning board's attention to state statute, Rhode Island Title 45 Towns and Cities, Chapter 45-24, Zoning Ordinance, Section 45-24-30, General Purposes of Zoning Ordinances. Zoning regulations shall be developed and maintained in accordance with the comprehensive plan prepared, adopted, and as may be amended in accordance with Chapter 22.2 of this of the title, and shall be designed to address the following purposes. 1, promoting the public health, safety, and general welfare. 2, providing for a range of use and intensities of use appropriate to the character of the city or town and reflecting current and expected further needs, providing for orderly growth and development that recognizes 1, the goals and patterns of land use contained in the comprehensive plan of the city or town adopted pursuant to Chapter 22.2 of this title. 2, the natural characteristics of the land, including its suitability for use based on soil characteristics and suitability to surface and groundwater pollution. 3, the value and dynamic nature of coastal and freshwater ponds, the shoreline and freshwater and coastal wetlands, the values and unique or valuable nature resources and features, the availability and capability of existing and planned public and or private services and facilities, the need to shape and balance urban and rural development, and 7, the use of innovative development regulations and techniques. And I'd just like to point out that in this statute, the importance of the comprehensive plan is mentioned twice. So I would urge the board to base their decision on what I just said and in the best interest of the town and its people. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Viveris, I have a question for you. When there's a conflict between the comprehensive plan and zoning, what prevails?
The zoning.
Zoning, thank you.
Up until 2011, it was a comprehensive plan. And I have argued for years to sit down and take the plan, the comprehensive plan, and say what's best for the town compared to the zoning. If you decide it's the zoning, you amend the plan. If you decide that what's in the comprehensive plan is in the best interest of the town, then you amend the zoning. And you stopped a lot of this.
Right now, the state law states that it's the zoning that prevails when there's a conflict.
Correct, but the state law also says that you should get together and make the plan and the zoning and
the council's responsibility, not the zoning.
it's the town's responsibility. Yes, the council should have said a long time ago to get it done, but they didn't, and we're here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak for or against the petition? Seeing none, I'll call Mr. Jackson up to respond to anything he'd like to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's been a long hearing, so I'll be extremely brief. Just a reminder, this plan meets the parking requirements. It doesn't require any dimensional variances. It meets all stormwater management requirements under the code. The restaurant use is a use by right in this limited business zone. We do appreciate the concerns expressed by the neighbors to the west. We listened to them during the planning board hearings. We met with them in August. Much of the concerns that they've expressed this evening relate to just the existence of a restaurant on this parcel. And that's a use by right. We've done everything we can in conjunction with the development of this project and the request for a special use permit so that beer and wine can be served, to do what we can with this project to mitigate any impact it has on our neighbors. You heard my client. He's a sincere person, and he's very much interested in making sure that he's a good neighbor. The relief we're asking for is the special use permit and a couple minor waivers regarding architectural design and site development. You heard it. Much of the complaints are issues that already exist. Traffic already cuts through Chestnut Hill and Brookdale. It just does. It has nothing to do with the site at 47 Valley Road.
Please keep the comments down.
This is a commercial zone. This commercial use is up and down Valley Road. Valley Road is a large state artery. I understand the concerns they have, but the reality is the town council at some point zoned this a commercial district, limited business. It abuts a residential area. There's requirements under the code to do what we can to buffer. We've done that. We've met the code requirements. And I believe with the evidence that we've presented this evening, we've given you all enough information and we've met our burden to meet the requirements for the granting of a special use permit. So I would respectfully request that you grant that relief along with the waivers. Thank you.
Just so everybody in the audience, including myself, has this right, if you were not seeking the special use permit for the beer and the wine, would you need to come before us?
No.
Thank you.
And this could be a McDonald's, a Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you name it.
Yes, again, restaurant use is allowed by right in the limited business zone.
And you're only here because of the beer and wine?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the application.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I believe you have to take two separate votes, one for the
Right.
special use and one for the
This motion will be for the special use. We'll do the special use first.
I understand the abutters' concerns, but sitting as a member of the board, they do not need to be before us just to put a restaurant in there. They're only here seeking a special use permit for the beer and wine.
Mr. King, how does a public road through a neighborhood, how does the process get handled if the neighborhood agrees that they'd like speed bumps or something to be installed? I know there's a couple neighborhoods that have...
Any traffic control measures on a public way would have to be handled by the town council.
Okay.
I don't know what the exact process is, but it's not something that this board, I believe, has.
No, yeah, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just potentially offering an alternative to mitigate.
Yeah, I understand. But it would have to be, I think, a request to the town council for a change to the traffic code.
To your knowledge, was there anything ever done about traffic control in that area? To your knowledge?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any other discussion?
Sure, I'm not a puppet for Mr. Jackson in any sense. His closing argument was why we have to approve this application. They've satisfied the requirements of the building code with minimal waivers that we'll talk about in a minute. I feel like the owner of this soon-to-be restaurant gave compelling testimony that He's an earnest, competent, experienced restaurateur. He doesn't want to fail at this business. He walked around the neighborhood, he talked to people, and I see that the neighborhood actually had some victories in that they got the traffic flow redesigned. In the process of getting the traffic flow redesigned, they got the double buffer trees back. The dumpster location was changed. It sounds like the hours of operation were modified maybe from something that you had asked for before. But the bottom line is, this is legal within our building code. This is a legal use for the area. And if you're going to approve something like this and you're going to have a restaurant in your neighborhood, I would rather have a sole proprietor business owner like this gentleman who has some experience, who will probably listen to you if you have concerns in the future. A liquor license is renewable, correct?
Annually.
If there's big issues, there's a renewable liquor license at stake. I hope you end up eating at the restaurant and enjoying it, and I hope you're successful.
Mr. Heaney?
I don't have a lot to add. I agree with my colleagues.
When I looked at this project today, I really focused in on why we're here. We're here today for the special use permit on the liquor license. Special use permits are designed for zoning relief conditionally. That's when I got a legal brief that I looked at. And so the reason why we're here is to give them a conditional permit to operate with a liquor license. We're not here to give them a conditional permit, as many people have said, to operate the restaurant. We're here for the liquor license. And when I went through the 5 standards, there's no diminution of property that could be proven. It won't result in a nuisance in the surrounding neighborhood that we know of, that we can sit here today and say. The comprehensive plan, I got tired of everyone quoting it to me, so I printed out the economic development and the land use, because both areas it has to meet. And in both areas, it meets it. Under economic development, it's the reuse of a commercial space that sits vacant right now. And under land use, it's the town council zoned it limited business. That did it. There's section 603 has a whole list of what you can put into different zoning areas. And we really don't have the luxury of saying, well, gee, I don't want that. I want a taxidermist in there. So our job is does it meet the 5 requirements? And it does meet the 5 requirements. So for that reason, I'm going to support it. And with that, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Kane?
Waiver.
Oh, we got to do the waivers. Can I have a motion on the waivers?
Motion to approve the waivers?
Second on the waivers?
Second motion.
Discussion?
The waivers are fairly modest. I believe it was the flat roof to actually make the restaurant more appealing, and the materials for the side of the building as well. You could use other things there probably that might fall within the code, but
Again,
I think it benefits you to get the waivers.
procedurally, it should have been done at the planning board. It wasn't, so we are now the deciding factor. I looked at its minimum relief. I think the nature of the historic site, you know, 1 of 6 in the country, we don't want to mess with how it looks. There might be, you know, value to it down the road keeping it, so I'm going to support it.
I agree. I think they did a good job of blending it into the community. I think it would be a good-looking facility, and it retains the antique nature.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Yeah.
Mr. King, are we going to sprint or do we?
I think you're obligated for 3 hours.
Yes, we're going to take a 5-minute break.